Okay, I want to get started, and you're not with me long. You leave me at 11:40, and that's long and all. So sadly today is mostly me talking and you listening, which is not our usual, so it should be an interesting change. I'm going to record us. I've actually already started recording it, so if you missed anything, you want to watch it back in the recording. I was going to make you a recording to watch over the weekend, but let's face it, I am not dumb. I realized you did not want to do that on your off day, so I did not. So we've got to be super productive today, because we need to finish painting the house and move on with our lives. So let's go ahead and go over these bone ringers you've definitely had long enough. Express each relation as a graph, then determine the domain and range. I can graph points all on my own, and I'm sure you can too. Can you tell me the domain and the range? 3, 2, 1.
-5.
-5. No, that would make sense. Now, is she wrong? Technically, no. But, you know, my OCD self would probably put -5, 1, 2, 3. I'm just super impressed that no one tried to repeat the 3. Okay. And then for the range,
8, 7, -9, -3.
8, 7, -9, -3. I'm proud she didn't repeat the -9. If we were to put these in order, I would do -9, -3, 7, 8. Now, do you absolutely have to? No, it didn't say you had to put in order. It just would have made sense to me because I'm crazy. Okay. It says, what polynomial must be added to x squared minus 2x plus 6? So we want to know added to what? Let me scoot over a little. Added to what? And it should give us 3x squared plus 7x. Anyone have an answer for this one?
I was lost.
D. Okay. Got an answer. Anyone else got an answer? Yes, dear.
A.
You got C. Okay.
A. Oh, sorry, I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I know. Okay. We have two ways we can solve this. My way would be to figure out this plus what, hence the little squiggle line, needs to give me 3x squared. So x squared to 3x squared, I'm going to need to add 2x squared, because x squared plus 2x squared gives you 3x squared. So I'm leaning towards Kiana, probably. Now, if that doesn't make sense to you, you could have just taken what was given to you. You know the total is 3x squared plus 7x. Subtract x squared minus 2x plus 6. You could subtract this whole term and figure it out. But I don't really like doing that. I like this, trying to guess and figure it out. So x squared plus 2x squared would give you 3x squared. So I know it's either D or E. Negative 2x suddenly becomes positive 7x. Negative 2x suddenly becomes positive 7x. So that's only possible if we add 9x, because 9 minus 2 is positive 7. And then 6 needs to cancel out entirely, because this last term has nobody missing an x. So it would have to be minus 6. So Kiana is completely correct. Thank you, Kiana. Okay, get out your Paint the House packet from last week. You were supposed to have done the first 3 on your own. I'm not even checking to see if you did that yet. Tomorrow, I will check to make sure that yours is completed. So if you didn't complete it, make sure it gets completed tonight. But I'm going over most of the answers now with you, so why you wouldn't just write them down, I do not know. We had figured out on the Paint the House activity that we had figured out before we left that there were 804 square feet of house that we needed to paint. So to recap what was going on, there was this lady named Miss Hamilton. She was the coach of the math team. She's trying to decide whether to let the math team members paint her home or to let her brother-in-law. Her brother-in-law was going to do $30 per hour. Flat rate. He already has supplies and everything because he's a painter. Whereas the math team members, and there are 3 of them, 3 students on her team, they're going to do $7 an hour plus the cost of the materials. So that's why she's trying to figure out how much paint she needs to buy, because she has to buy the paint for them. And I think it's silly because she probably also has to buy the brushes and some other things that we're not factoring into our scenario. Okay, so number 1 said 1 gallon of paint will cover approximately 350 square feet, and it will cost $19 a gallon. Well, 350 times 2 is 700. So we know she needs more than 2 gallons. It's been a while since she's had her house painted, so she plans to have 2 coats of paint put on each surface. How many gallons of paint will be required for her job? Be careful here. We already realized she's crazy, hence all the measurements. Can you buy fractional pieces of gallons of paint? No. So you can't buy 4.5 gallons. If you need 4.5, you're going to have to buy 5. So there are 2 ways to solve this problem. You can either, since she's doing 2 coats, you can say 804 times 2, because she's going to do it twice, and say that's 1608. So really we need to cover 1,608 feet squared. And then you can divide that by 350, 1608 divided by 350. Someone has a calculator for me. So 4 point what? 4.59, whatever. And so Natalia's right. We have to say, if we're going to do it that way, she's going to buy 5 gallons. Now, you don't have to do it that way. That's just one option. In fact, that's not how the textbook did it, or the key did it. They instead said they did just the 1 coat, so 804 divided by 350, and they got 2.29, I think. And then since you had to do that twice, they multiplied that by 2, and I think that's about 4.5 as well. I'm just rounding, dramatically rounding. So again, we're going to have to buy 5 gallons. It should be 4.48. 4.58 maybe? I don't know. 4.58, yes, Ms. Compton, do your math today. 4.58. Okay, either way, in the green or in the red, either way, she's going to have to buy 5 gallons of paint. Okay, number 2 is actually really easy because it says write a function to represent what it will cost for Hank to paint the house as a function of time. So we've spent a lot of time on this. I'm going to put T for time. And then for my other variable, I can pick A for amount, C for cost, something like, I'm going to do C for cost just because I feel like it, but any variable that makes sense for money. You could do M for money. So I'm going to say C of T equals, and then what should I put for, because it's Hank and he's $30 an hour? 30 T. And that's it, right? Because there's no additional cost. Because Hank's $30 an hour, that's his flat rate. He already has all his supplies. He already has everything you need. Okay, and the next one says, write a function for Ms. Hamilton's students to paint the house. Don't forget the fixed cost. Again, I'm still going to do T for time and C for cost. But my function should be different because they're not charging the same amount per hour. Yes, plus they have the cost of the materials. So how many people are there? How many are on the math team? There are 3 people on the math team. How much for each person an hour? 7. So what should I put next to the T? 21. Yes, so 21 T. But I'm not done because I have to do plus
95. Just kidding.
Something. She's got to buy the paint. How many gallons is she buying?
5.
How much is it per gallon?
19.
So what's 19 times 5?
95.
Okay, so 21T plus 95 is correct. So we've got a function for Hank, and we've got a function for the math team students. And we have that plus 95 because they have to buy the paint. She'll have to buy the paint if they're doing it. Okay, number 4, you're really going to have to work on at home. It's wanting a table. Let me show you what we want our table to look like. So we want a table with X for 0 through 12. And you want to plug it in with 30, and you want to plug it in with 21 plus 95. So I'm going to put that under the screen for a second. I would probably do it on my own paper with lines because there's not a lot of room. Or you could do it on the back because there's space there.
So it's X. Can you read that out?
Yeah, it's X for the first column, and then the values for X. I would have done T for time. That's me. So I would have done T and then 0 hours, 1 hour, 2 hour. It's all the way through 12. And then they did 30X and 21X plus 95. If you want to do 30T and 21T plus 95, that's fine too. Back to we were supposed to be picking more meaningful variables. I think T is more meaningful than X in this case. But we're just filling in a table. So you'll plug in 30 times 0 and you'll get 0. And then 21 times 0 plus 95, you'll get 95. It's really it's going to be a very simple table to fill in. But I'm not going to let you do it now because you're not with me much longer. Does everyone understand what they need to do for number 4? Okay. So on number 4, so tomorrow at the beginning of class, I want to walk around and see your paint in the house. So really, for sure for homework tonight, you got to fill in your table. Okay. So number 4 we talked about. Number 5 says, on graph paper, sketch the graph of the situation. Use the graph to determine the number of hours at which the cost will be the same. You can totally handle this on your own as well. I'm going to make a couple suggestions for your graph. I would count on the x-axis, I would count by 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe all the way up until 15 hours. So I'm going to make this one the hours. The x-axis is hours. And then on the y-axis for money, I would count by 30s. So 30, 60, 90, etc. And in my textbook, they go all the way up till 390. And that obviously is the money or the cost. Now, I'm just making this up, but you realize one line automatically starts at 95 because you have to pay $95 for the paint regardless. Because if the math team's painting the house, I at least have to pay $95. Even if they don't work any hours, I'm paying $95. So one line's going to start off like this. Whereas Hank's line, so this is the math team. And Hank's line is going to start off down here. And at some point, they're going to cross. If they do not cross, you've done something wrong. Where they cross, this is where the cost would be the same. Now you need to figure out where they cross. Now, using your table, you already have a good idea of where that occurs. On your table, you'll realize, oh, it's cheaper to go with the math team after I think it's 10 hours, somewhere between 10 and 11. So obviously you expect them to cross somewhere between 10 and 11. Are there any questions about how you need to make your graph? If you want to use graph paper, that's fine. If you want to borrow some from me, just ask. I'd gladly give you some. Okay, number 6 says, use algebraic methods to determine the number of hours at which the cost will be the same. What will that cost be? What do they mean by algebraic methods? Don't they mean solve an equation? Okay, so what was the equation for Hank? And what was the equation for the math team? Thank you, dear. Okay, so if it's saying find an algebraic way to determine when the cost will be the same, what do you think we're supposed to do then? So how do we make things the same? You set them equal to each other. So all you need to do is solve if 30t equals 21t plus 95, what does t equal? You should end up getting, and I'm going to tell you an answer, 10 and 5 ninths if we're being real specific. So again, somewhere between 10 and 11 hours. Suddenly it's cheaper to go with the math team than it is to go with Hank. Okay, and then 7, 8, 9 are actually the easiest ones. When should you hire Hank? When it's cheaper for Hank. And it's going to be cheaper for Hank anywhere less than this number. So you're going to write a pretty sentence about as long as it's less than 10 and 5 ninths, go with Hank. But your sentence is going to be much lovelier than mine, because mine is not much of a sentence. If it's going to take longer than 10 and 5 ninths hours for the job, let's say it takes 12 hours, you should go with the math team. And then number 9 is the easiest question of the day, because it says, what factors should Ms. Hamilton use to determine which offer to accept? What factors should she use to determine which offer to accept? Obviously, how many hours she thinks the job is going to take. Obviously, but there are other things that you could put. There's common sense things you could put in there. Who would you go with? Because he's the professional. And this is the exterior of your house, and you're trusting it up to some children. That seems crazy to me, too. I would go with Hank because he is the professional. I don't care if he does cost me $10 more overall. It's probably going to last a little longer. He did a bit of a better job. Anything like that would do, but you're your own person and you have your own thoughts. Maybe you think she should go with the math team. She is the math team sponsor. Isn't she supposed to help the math team? They're apparently in need. Isn't she supposed to go with her people? I don't know. Or maybe you think she can hire, what if she only hired 2 members of the math team? You could try to think it through that way. Like, maybe it'll be cheaper that way. I don't know. Whatever you think. But you can use your God-given common sense skills for that one. It does not have to be mathy. It can just be always go with professional. Whatever you think makes sense to you. Are there any questions about any of that?